Do you ever think about those Christmas fads from the 1970s, the ones so wildly popular then that it seems impossible they vanished without a trace? These fads filled holiday seasons with laughter, creativity, and a kind of earnest enthusiasm nobody questioned. So what made an entire generation embrace them, only to let them disappear completely? Pet rocks as Christmas gifts were one of the most wonderfully absurd fads to sweep through holiday shopping in the 1970s, and people bought them by the millions without a single hint of irony or hesitation. Stores displayed them in tiny cardboard boxes complete with breathing holes and straw bedding, as if these smooth stones might actually need comfort or fresh air to survive the journey home. Families wrapped them in shiny paper, placed them under the tree, and genuinely believed they were giving something clever and thoughtful to their loved ones. Kids opened these gifts with expressions ranging from confusion to delight, sometimes naming their rocks and keeping them on nightstands for years afterward. The instruction manual included tips on training your pet rock to sit, stay, and roll over, all delivered with deadpan humor that made adults chuckle while children took careful notes. Nobody questioned the logic because questioning would have ruined the fun entirely. The fad burned bright for one spectacular season and faded as quickly as it arrived, leaving behind only dusty boxes tucked into attic corners. Mood rings stuffed into Christmas stockings became one of the defining small gifts of the 1970s, promising to reveal emotions through the magic of color-changing crystals. Kids loved slipping them onto fingers and watching the stone shift from murky brown to brilliant blue depending on body temperature and imagination. Parents bought them by the handful because they were cheap, fascinating, and gave everyone something to discuss during holiday gatherings. Aunts and uncles compared ring colors across the dinner table, debating whether deep purple meant passion or just poor circulation from sitting too long. The rings came in tiny plastic cases that looked almost scientific, adding mystique that these were not just jewelry, but actual emotional detectors. Nobody questioned why stress apparently made hands cold or why happiness turned the stone green regardless of actual feelings. The technology was questionable, the accuracy laughable, but the fun was real. By the 1980s, mood rings faded into novelty shop obscurity, replaced by newer gadgets promising equally dubious insights into the human condition. CB Radio Santas became an unexpected holiday tradition in the 1970s, when truckers across the nation took turns playing Jolly Old Saint Nick for children listening on family radios. Parents tuned their home-based stations to Channel 19 and let kids talk directly to Santa as he supposedly traveled highways delivering gifts. The crackling static and trucker slang made the experience feel thrilling and slightly forbidden, like eavesdropping on a secret world of big rigs. Kids asked Santa about reindeer while truckers in 18-wheelers played along with surprising warmth, sometimes staying in character for miles. Families gathered around the radio console the same way earlier generations had gathered around fireplaces, creating new rituals from new technology. The CB craze was everywhere in the 70s, and Christmas simply gave it another reason to exist. Some truckers became legendary in their regions, with children requesting specific handles and waiting by the speaker for their favorite highway Santa to pass through. When CB radios lost their cultural dominance, this tradition faded into static and memory. Fruitcake exchange chains became one of the strangest and funniest Christmas traditions of the 1970s, where families openly joked about passing the same indestructible cake from house to house for years. These dense, fruit-studded bricks arrived wrapped in cellophane and ribbon, looking festive enough to display but too heavy to actually eat without serious commitment. People received them from co-workers, neighbors, or distant relatives who clearly needed to offload their own unwanted gifts. The joke was that fruitcake never spoiled, never softened, and never disappeared no matter how hard you tried to ignore it. Some families literally mailed the same cake back and forth for a decade, adding new ribbons each year and laughing about its immortal journey. Kids poked at the candied cherries and mysterious green bits, wondering if anyone anywhere actually enjoyed eating these things. Adults smiled knowingly and tucked cakes into pantries where they waited patiently for regifting season to return. The tradition faded as fresher jokes took over, leaving fruitcake to become a punchline rather than a holiday participant. Spray on flocking parties turned tree decorating into a neighborhood event during the 1970s, when families gathered in garages and driveways to coat their Christmas trees in artificial snow. Someone always owned the pump sprayer and bags of white flocking powder, and that person became the unofficial host of the season's messiest celebration. Kids watched in amazement as wet spray transformed ordinary pine branches into something straight out of a winter postcard. Adults laughed, coughed, and wiped powder off their faces while debating whether the coating was thick enough or too clumpy. The smell was sharp and chemical, but nobody minded because the results looked impressively festive. Neighbors compared trees afterward, judging whose flocking looked most authentic and whose looked like a snowman had sneezed over everything. The process was messy, cleanup endless, and fumes probably should have been avoided, but none of that mattered at the time. By the 1980s, pre-flocked trees from stores made the tradition unnecessary, and the communal spraying parties quietly disappeared from neighborhood calendars. 8-track Christmas albums were the soundtrack of holiday seasons in the 1970s, those chunky plastic cartridges clicking into car stereos and home consoles with satisfying mechanical certainty. Families drove to Grandma's house with Bing Crosby playing in endless loops, songs interrupted only by the distinctive clunk of tracks changing mid-note. Kids grew up associating certain carols with specific moments of audio interruption, like White Christmas fading right before the final verse. People collected these cartridges the way later generations would collect compact discs, stacking them in carrying cases proudly. The sound quality was warm and slightly muffled, giving every song a cozy, lived-in feeling that modern digital recordings never quite match. Stores sold holiday compilations featuring artists nobody remembered and arrangements sounding like elevator music given a festive makeover. Families played the same albums year after year until the tape wore thin and audio began to wobble in familiar ways. When cassettes arrived and 8 tracks became obsolete, those clunky cartridges ended up in boxes destined for garage sales and landfills. Matching family pajama photographs became a beloved and slightly embarrassing tradition in the 1970s, when parents dressed everyone from toddlers to teenagers in identical flannel patterns for the annual holiday portrait. The fabrics were loud, the patterns louder, and nobody escaped the ritual no matter how much they protested. Dads stood stiffly beside fake fireplaces while moms adjusted collars and smoothed wrinkles that would show up in the flash anyway. Kids squirmed, dogs wandered into frame at the worst moments, and grandparents sat in chairs looking simultaneously proud and confused. The photographs were mailed to relatives in holiday cards, displayed on mantels, and eventually rediscovered decades later to universal groaning and laughter. The pajamas were often gifts from enthusiastic grandmothers who believed strongly in family unity expressed through coordinated textiles. Nobody questioned whether future generations would find these portraits charming or horrifying because they simply felt festive. As fashion sensibilities shifted, the tradition quietly faded, but those photographs remained tucked into albums waiting for reunions. Aluminum Christmas trees with rotating color wheels were the space-age answer to holiday decorating in the 1970s, turning living rooms into shimmering displays of futuristic celebration. These metallic trees came in silver, sometimes gold or pink, with branches made from actual aluminum that caught every bit of available light. Families set up motorized color wheels beneath them, projecting shifting hues of red, blue, green, and gold onto reflective branches in hypnotic rotation. The effect was mesmerizing, strange, and completely unlike anything nature had ever intended for a Christmas tree. Kids loved watching colors change, sometimes sitting for long stretches, just staring at the slow rotation as if it were a lava lamp disguised as decor. Parents appreciated that these trees never dropped needles, never needed water, and never required annual trips to the tree lot. The hum of the color wheel motor became its own holiday music, a soft mechanical whir signaling the season had officially arrived. By the late 70s, nostalgia brought natural evergreens back, and aluminum forests were packed away into history. Macrame Christmas ornaments hung from trees in nearly every craft-enthusiastic household during the 1970s, those knotted rope creations transforming living rooms into textured wonderlands. Mothers, aunts, and grandmothers spent hours tying intricate patterns around wooden beads, creating snowflakes, angels, and abstract shapes worthy of galleries. The supplies came from craft stores smelling like jute and possibility, with entire aisles dedicated to the macrame movement sweeping the nation. Kids learned basic knots at school and came home determined to create their own ornaments, filling trees with lopsided attempts parents displayed proudly. The texture was rough, the colors earthy, and the overall effect was somewhere between bohemian chic and homemade charm. These ornaments often lasted decades, passed through generations who appreciated the handmade quality even when styles changed dramatically. Department stores tried selling mass-produced versions, but they never captured the authentic character of the real thing. By the 1980s, macrame faded from mainstream fashion, taking the ornament tradition with it into craft history. Fondue sets became the ultimate Christmas gift of the 1970s, those elegant heated pots promising to transform ordinary dinners into sophisticated dipping experiences shared with friends. Every newly married couple received at least one, and some households accumulated multiples as the fad reached its peak during the holiday seasons. The sets came with long-handled forks, color-coded so guests would not lose track of their bread or meat chunk in the communal pot. Families gathered around bubbling cheese or chocolate, laughing when someone inevitably dropped their fork and had to fish for it with tongs. The ritual felt fancy, continental, and somehow more adult than regular dining, even when cheese turned stringy or oil splattered unpredictably. Hostesses studied recipe cards and debated proper temperatures with the seriousness of culinary professionals. Kids found the process endlessly entertaining, especially when adults got competitive about keeping food on forks longest. By the 1980s, fondue lost its fashionable edge and sets migrated to basement storage, waiting for revival trends decades later. Chia pets appeared under countless Christmas trees in the 1970s, those terracotta creatures promising to sprout green fur if you just added water and waited with childlike patience. Families gave them as gag gifts, serious gifts, and something in between, never quite sure how to categorize a product that turned gardening into a novelty. Kids watered them religiously for the first few days, checking every morning to see if the tiny seeds had finally burst into that distinctive grassy coat. The commercials played constantly during December, with jingles so catchy they lodged permanently in the brain like holiday songs nobody asked to memorize. Some chias grew beautifully, coating their ceramic bodies in lush green sprouts that looked exactly like the television promised. Others grew in patches, leaving bald spots that made the animals look diseased rather than delightful. Parents displayed successful ones on windowsills like tiny trophies, proof that the family could nurture something together. By the time the green faded and the terracotta dried out, another Christmas had passed and the chia was quietly retired. The fad returned in waves over the decades, but nothing matched that first strange magic. Shag carpet Christmas tree skirts spread beneath holiday trees in the 1970s like fluffy clouds of pure polyester excess, their long fibers catching every dropped needle and stray piece of tinsel. Families chose them in colors matching living room decor, which meant avocado green, harvest gold, burnt orange, and the occasional daring white that showed every speck of dirt. Kids loved running their fingers through the deep pile, sometimes hiding small toys or candy in the shaggy depths like squirrels storing nuts. The skirts made gift arrangement feel luxurious, each wrapped package sinking slightly into the soft surface as if resting on a miniature bed. Vacuuming these monsters required patience, as long fibers wrapped around roller brushes and fought back against every cleaning attempt. Pine sap stuck permanently, water stains spread mysteriously, and by January most skirts looked like they had survived a small war. Yet families used the same ones year after year, the wear somehow adding to their charm. When minimalist decorating trends arrived in later decades, these plush relics vanished into donation bins. Today, they surface occasionally at vintage sales, reminders of an era when more was always better. Avocado green and harvest gold. Christmas decorations dominated the 1970s with the kind of confident color choices that make modern designers wince and laugh in equal measure. Families coordinated their entire holiday display around these earthy tones, believing that matching the tree to the kitchen appliances was sophisticated decorating. Ornaments came in muted greens that looked like vegetables had invaded the holiday season, hanging beside golden balls reflecting equally golden ceiling fixtures. Tinsel, garlands, and even wrapping paper followed the same palette, creating living rooms that felt warm, cohesive, and completely stuck in their decade. Kids grew up thinking Christmas naturally came in these colors, only realizing years later how distinctly 70s their childhood memories looked. The commitment was total and unapologetic, from tablecloths to napkin rings to ceramic Santa figurines wearing suspiciously earth-toned suits. When brighter colors returned to holiday fashion in the 80s, these muted treasures were packed away with something between relief and regret. Today, vintage collectors hunt for authentic pieces, but most families simply let them disappear into the fog of outdated taste. Polaroid Christmas morning photo sessions became sacred rituals in the 1970s, when that distinctive white-bordered instant photograph felt like witnessing a small miracle unfold in your living room. Parents shook the developing pictures with superstitious dedication, believing the motion helped images appear faster despite all evidence to the contrary. Kids watched the blank square slowly reveal faces, wrapping paper, and expressions of genuine surprise as the chemicals worked their mysterious magic. Each photo cost real money, so families rationed shots carefully, choosing moments worth capturing rather than firing endlessly like modern cameras allow. The results were imperfect, often overexposed near tree lights or slightly blurry from excited movement, but that imperfection made them feel real. Albums filled with these small squares told the story of Christmases past in a way that felt tangible and permanent in ways digital files never match. The cameras themselves became gifts, passed around so everyone could try capturing their own version of the morning chaos. When better technology arrived and instant photography lost its novelty, something irreplaceable quietly disappeared from holiday mornings. Novelty singing decorations invaded Christmas displays in the 1970s. Those battery-powered figures that belted out carols at the push of a button or the detection of nearby movement. Stores sold dancing Santas, caroling snowmen, and various animals whose mouths moved in unsettling approximation of actual singing while tiny speakers crackled with cheer. Families placed them on mantels and entryway tables where they could startle unsuspecting guests who wandered too close. Kids pushed the buttons obsessively, delighted by the repetitive songs that drove parents slowly towards seasonal madness. The technology was primitive, producing sounds that landed somewhere between charming and horrifying depending on battery strength. Some figures moved their arms, turned their heads, or swayed in rhythms that had nothing to do with the music playing from their bodies. By late December, most families had removed batteries or hidden the figures entirely, their novelty worn completely through. These decorations rarely survived more than a few seasons before mechanical failures silenced them forever. Yet for a brief window each year, they represented the cutting edge of holiday entertainment technology in American homes. Lava lamps glowed beneath Christmas trees throughout the 1970s. Those hypnotic tubes of colored wax and liquid promising to bring groovy sophistication to any bedroom or den. Teenagers requested them specifically, believing that nothing said cool quite like watching blobs rise, fall, and morph in slow motion against the tree lights. Parents gave them with slight confusion, unsure exactly what made heated wax so desirable but willing to trust their children understood something they did not. The lamps took forever to warm up, requiring hours of patience before the wax finally softened enough to perform its signature dance. Once flowing, they became meditation objects, conversation starters, and ambient lighting all rolled into one surprisingly heavy glass cylinder. Kids arranged them beside stereos and beanbag chairs, creating corners of their rooms that felt distinctly mysterious. The colors ranged from classic red and yellow to experimental purples that matched nothing else. By the 1980s, the lava lamp had become a symbol of outdated taste, packed away with other decade relics. They returned later as retro novelties, but the original magic belonged entirely to those who first unwrapped them. The Sears Wish book arrival became a Christmas season ritual in the 1970s, that thick catalog landing on doorsteps like a doorway to every toy and dream a child could imagine. Kids claimed the book immediately, circling items with crayons or pens before siblings got the same idea. Pages grew soft and worn from constant handling, certain toy sections becoming so creased they fell open automatically to the most desired items. Parents used the catalog strategically, gauging which circled items appeared most often and which were clearly unrealistic fantasies. The photography made everything look magical, with children always smiling and toys always working perfectly. Families ordered through mail, waited weeks for delivery, and experienced anticipation that modern next-day shipping has completely eliminated. Some households kept old catalogs for years, flipping through them nostalgically or using them for craft projects. When the catalog era ended and retail moved online, something tangible disappeared from the holiday experience. That thick book represented possibility in a way screens never quite replicate, each page promising that Christmas could deliver exactly what you dreamed. Velvet paintings appeared as Christmas gifts throughout the 1970s with surprising frequency, those fuzzy black canvases featuring everything from sad-eyed children to majestic wildlife rendered in glowing colors. Families hung them in dens, basements, and bedrooms where the texture caught light and created an effect somewhere between sophisticated and deeply strange. Kids received paintings of horses, dogs, or clowns, displayed them proudly for years, and only later realized how distinctly their childhood walls had reflected the decade. The paintings came from swap meets, department stores, and mysterious roadside vendors who materialized whenever someone needed affordable wall art. Adults gave them to each other with complete sincerity, believing velvet elevated ordinary subjects into something worthy of display. The fuzzy surface attracted dust, pet hair, and fingerprints that never quite came clean despite careful attempts. When decorating tastes shifted toward cleaner aesthetics, velvet paintings migrated to garage sales and thrift stores. Today, they inspire equal parts nostalgia and disbelief, artifacts from an era that celebrated texture and drama over subtlety and restraint in home decorating. Wacky Packages trading cards filled Christmas stockings throughout the 1970s, those satirical stickers mocking familiar grocery products with puns and gross-out humor kids absolutely adored. Parents bought packs without understanding the appeal, trusting that anything sold at checkout counters must be harmless for holiday giving. Kids tore into wrappers immediately, laughing at parody names and disgusting illustrations that turned breakfast cereals into something horrifying. The stickers covered notebooks, lockers, and bedroom doors, creating permanent monuments to 70s humor that parents later regretted. Trading sparked playground negotiations, with rare stickers commanding impressive exchanges and duplicates becoming currency for other transactions. The artwork was genuinely clever, walking a line between family-friendly and subversive that made kids feel like they were getting away with something. Some complete sets became valuable collectibles stored by children who resisted the urge to stick everything immediately. When the fad faded, remaining packs gathered dust on store shelves. But for those who unwrapped them on Christmas morning, these silly stickers represented pure, uncomplicated joy. Tube socks appeared in Christmas packages throughout the 1970s with the kind of regularity that made children groan and adults insist they would appreciate practical gifts someday. These long striped socks stretched from toe to knee without any heel shaping, fitting everyone and no one perfectly at the same time. Grandmothers bought them in bulk, wrapping each pair individually to increase the appearance of generosity while staying within budget. Kids opened them with barely concealed disappointment, immediately scanning remaining gifts for something more exciting. Yet somehow those same socks became essential, worn during basketball games, gym classes, and lazy weekends until the elastic finally gave out. The stripes came in school colors, team colors, and combinations that matched absolutely nothing but somehow worked anyway. Athletes wore them pulled high, while others scrunched them around ankles in the style of the moment. By the 1980s, athletic sock design had evolved beyond the simple tube. and these cylinders became relics of simpler times. Today, they trigger instant recognition, those bold stripes carrying memories of gymnasiums and Christmases when practical gifts still meant something. Musical greeting cards that played tinny electronic carols became one of the most delightfully annoying Christmas fads of the 1970s. Those flat envelopes hiding tiny speakers that burst into song the moment someone opened the flap. Families sent them to relatives across the country, knowing the recipient would either laugh or groan when that familiar melody crackled to life. The technology was primitive, producing sounds that resembled carols the way a music box resembles an orchestra, but the novelty was irresistible. Kids opened and closed them repeatedly, wearing out the battery mechanism long before Christmas dinner was served. Some cards played for 3 seconds, others for an agonizing 30, and none had volume controls or off switches. Mailboxes filled with these musical surprises, each a tiny performance waiting to startle whoever retrieved the daily delivery. The batteries died unpredictably, sometimes mid-song, leaving recipients with cards that wheezed rather than sang. When the fad peaked, households received a dozen musical cards in a single season, creating accidental symphonies stacked on the mantle. Spray snow for windows became an essential Christmas decorating tool in the 1970s, those aerosol cans promising to transform ordinary glass into frosted winter scenes with a few passes. Families gathered around kitchen windows and sliding doors, shaking the cans vigorously before releasing clouds of white foam that smelled chemical and clung to everything it touched. Kids drew snowmen, wrote holiday messages backwards so they could be read from outside, and covered every inch of glass until the house looked like it had survived a blizzard. The application was easy, but removal was another story, requiring razor blades, vinegar, and patience that tested even the most dedicated cleaners. Some families left the residue until spring, when warm weather finally softened the crusty remains enough for scraping. The cans promised festive results but delivered unpredictable textures, sometimes fluffy and sometimes streaky, depending on temperature and application. Parents regretted purchases by December 26th when the cleanup began in earnest. Yet every year, families bought new cans, believing this time the results would be perfect. Blow-mold plastic nativity scenes lit up front yards across the nation in the 1970s, those hollow, glowing figures bringing the Christmas story to life in ways that ranged from reverent to accidentally hilarious. Families positioned Mary, Joseph, and baby Jesus on frozen lawns, plugging extension cords through basement windows to illuminate the Holy Family for passing cars. The plastic aged quickly, fading from sun exposure and cracking in cold weather until faces became unrecognizable blurs. Wind knocked figures over regularly, sending wise men tumbling across yards and shepherds face down in snowdrifts. Kids found the glowing displays magical, not noticing that proportions were slightly off or that the camels looked more confused than majestic. Some families added pieces yearly, building elaborate scenes that covered entire front yards in illuminated drama. The extension cords created tripping hazards, bulbs burned out unpredictably, and electricity bills climbed each December. When more sophisticated outdoor lighting arrived in later decades, these simple plastic figures were retired to garage corners. Today, vintage examples command surprising prices from collectors who remember their humble glow. Felt advent calendars with tiny pockets became beloved countdown tools in the 1970s, those handmade or store-bought hangings that turned December into a daily treasure hunt. Families hung them on doors or walls, filling each numbered pocket with chocolates, small toys, or handwritten notes promising special treats. Kids woke early every morning, racing to discover what surprise awaited in that day's compartment. The felt attracted dust, pet hair, and the occasional moth, but these imperfections only added character to objects used year after year. Some families made their own, cutting shapes from craft store felt and stitching pockets with varying degrees of skill. The anticipation each calendar created was more valuable than whatever small prize waited inside, teaching patience while building excitement for Christmas morning. Parents restocked pockets secretly, maintaining the illusion that the calendar itself was somehow magical rather than manually filled. When commercial advent calendars with printed cardboard and mass-produced chocolates took over, the handmade felt versions quietly disappeared. Those that survived became family heirlooms, their faded colors carrying decades of December memories. Holiday-themed television dinner trays became unexpected Christmas traditions in the 1970s. Those metal lap trays decorated with snowmen, Santas, and winter scenes that made eating in front of the television feel festive. Families pulled them out every December, setting up informal dining stations in living rooms where everyone could watch specials while balancing plates. The trays featured artwork ranging from charming to garish, with colors so bright they competed with the Christmas tree for attention. Kids loved having their own designated eating surface, feeling grown up enough to manage dinner without a proper table. The metal warped slightly over years of use, causing cups to slide toward edges and forks to roll unexpectedly. Some families collected sets, matching trays creating unified holiday dining experiences in front of glowing screens. The ritual combined two great 70s loves, convenience food and Christmas programming, creating memories that smelled like turkey dinners. When dining habits changed and families returned to tables, these trays were folded flat and stored with other seasonal decorations. Today, they surface at estate sales, carrying grease stains and nostalgia in equal measure. Watching the Yule log broadcast for hours without changing the channel was one of those strange 1970s traditions that made perfect sense at the time and baffles people today. Television stations would air footage of a crackling fireplace, sometimes for the entire morning, offering families without real fireplaces a visual substitute that felt cozy and festive. People left it on during breakfast, while opening presents, or simply as background ambiance while the household buzzed with activity. The fire never changed, the logs never shifted dramatically, and yet families watched with genuine contentment, letting the flickering flames fill their living rooms with warmth they could almost feel. Children stared at the screen wondering if the fire would ever go out, while adults appreciated the calm it brought to chaotic mornings. There was no plot, no dialogue, just the steady crackle of burning wood repeated on a loop. Some families made it a point of pride to keep the Yule log on all day, as if changing the channel would break the spell. The tradition faded as programming options multiplied, but those who remember it recall a time when television could offer peace instead of noise. Homemade popcorn and cranberry garlands were the quiet crafts that filled long December nights. Before endless screen time and tangled lights, families gathered around the kitchen table with a bowl of popcorn, a spool of thread, and patience. Each string told a story, each bead a small act of care. Fingers pricked, popcorn crumbled, and cranberries rolled away, but laughter followed every mishap. The radio played softly, and someone always sang along while threading. It wasn't about perfection, it was about being together in the soft rhythm of creation. Children learned the rhythm of stitching, laughing when kernels broke, proud when their strings stretched across the tree. It was slow work, but that was the point. The stillness felt sacred, the soft chatter and warm lamplight turning the task into memory. The smell of butter and pine filled the air, and even if the garlands drooped or tangled, no one minded. They were proof of time spent together, of love stitched one kernel at a time. Every garland became a handmade memory, destined to outlast the season. The sight of them hanging against the tree lights made even the smallest home feel grand. They were not decorations, they were family woven into color and string. Hanging them on the tree meant more than decoration. It meant family, connection, and the beauty of effort made visible. Silly Putty might have been the simplest toy ever invented, but it captured the essence of fun better than most. Soft, stretchy, and wonderfully weird, it could bounce like a ball, stretch like gum, or lift newspaper comic prints right off the page. It was science and silliness in one red plastic egg. You could roll it, squeeze it, or twist it into strange shapes. It never lost its charm. There was no right or wrong way to play with Silly Putty, and maybe that was the secret to its success. It encouraged curiosity and creativity, letting kids explore texture, movement, and physics without even realizing it. The squish and pop between your fingers was oddly satisfying, the kind of tactile joy that screens could never replicate. Parents loved it because it was clean. Kids loved it because it was endless. Silly Putty was proof that imagination did not need rules. It just needed something squishy and a pair of willing hands. Decades later, that pink goo still sits on store shelves, ready to stretch its way into new memories. Glass ornament string lights that overheated were practically the heartbeat of Christmas decor in the 1970s. When you plugged them in, the whole house lit up with colors that felt warm, deep, and slightly dramatic, something modern LED lights never quite managed to recreate. The bulbs were thick and glossy, the kind you could tap lightly and hear a tiny clink as if they were miniature ornaments in their own right. Every family had at least one set, sometimes passed down from older relatives who swore by their glow. Of course, those bulbs burned hot enough to toast your fingers if you held them too long, but that was part of the charm. You learned to respect them the same way you respected stovetops or ovens. Today, though, anything that overheats even slightly is pulled off the shelves before it ever reaches a living room. Modern electrical codes ban lights with certain wiring thickness and heat output, and anything with a glass bulb is quietly pushed into the category of retro danger. But those lights had personality. They flickered softly, they hummed ever so slightly, and when one bulb went out, the entire string went dark, sending the family into a comedic treasure hunt to find the culprit. That memory stays warm in a way the lights never did. Serving homemade fruitcake to guests was a Christmas tradition that divided families and neighborhoods into passionate camps of lovers and skeptics. Grandmothers spent weeks soaking dried fruits in rum or brandy, folding them into dense batter, and baking loaves that could double as doorstops if left unattended too long. The cakes arrived at gatherings wrapped in cloth and tied with ribbon, presented with pride that demanded at least a polite taste from everyone. Some people genuinely loved the intense sweetness, the chewy fruit, and the boozy warmth that spread through each bite. Others quietly pushed their slices around, waiting for the right moment to hide them beneath a napkin. The fruitcake became a symbol of effort, a way of saying someone spent real time preparing something special. Recipes were guarded like family secrets, passed down through generations. Regifting fruitcake became a quiet tradition of its own, with some cakes traveling from house to house for years. Today, fruitcake has faded into the background, replaced by lighter desserts. But for those who loved them, and even those who only pretended to, fruitcake remains a reminder of an era when effort mattered more than convenience. TV variety. Christmas specials made every living room feel like the front row of a show. From Donnie and Marie Osmond's sparkling duets to Bob Hope's heartfelt jokes, these broadcasts turned holiday nights into small screen events. Families gathered together in pajamas, popcorn bowls ready, as familiar faces sang carols under glittering stage lights. The sets looked magical. Fake snow falling in perfect rhythm, choirs swaying behind big smiles, and stars dressed in sequins that caught the camera's glow. It was glitzy and sentimental all at once, a snapshot of show business wrapped in red and green. Parents adored the humor, kids waited for the songs, and everyone joined in when the finale rolled around. Dolly Parton could bring a tear to even the toughest dad with her soft Tennessee drawl and silver microphone. It wasn't just entertainment, it was a tradition, a reminder that Christmas could make everyone pause together for one shared hour. When the credits rolled, the warmth in the room lingered longer than the applause. Before streaming, these specials were the heartbeat of television Christmas, fleeting, festive, and full of charm. The spirograph drawing set turned simple pens and gears into an art show of hypnotic precision. You would sit with paper, a handful of plastic rings, and colored pens, then watch as swirling loops and spirals formed in front of you. It felt like creating perfect chaos, patterns that looked too beautiful to be random, but too intricate to plan. Every circle, curve, and line became a new discovery. For kids who loved art but wanted something beyond crayons, spirograph felt like science and creativity holding hands. It taught patience, coordination, and focus in a way that never felt like a lesson. Parents loved watching the quiet concentration it inspired, while kids felt proud of every page they filled. The rhythmic motion of the gears was oddly soothing, almost meditative. Each finished design was like capturing motion itself, frozen on paper in color and symmetry. In a noisy world, Spirograph gave kids a calm space to create something mesmerizing. Even decades later, those delicate patterns remind us of a simpler time when wonder could come from nothing more than pen, paper, and the hum of imagination. Open flame candles on trees or windowsills were one of those Christmas traditions that felt romantic, peaceful, and even holy, depending on the home you were in. The soft flicker of the flame against the glass or the pine needles created a scene that looked straight out of an old storybook. Homes in the 1970s were filled with this quiet glow, the kind that wrapped every corner in a sense of warmth that electric lights could not quite match. Nobody sat there thinking about fire codes or ember spread or how quickly a dry pine tree could catch. People trusted their instinct, their attentiveness, and the sturdiness of a candle that had been burning quietly on the same windowsill every year. And for many families, that soft flame felt like a symbol, something sacred tied to the season itself. Today, though, this tradition is treated like a disaster waiting to happen. Fire departments warn against it, insurance companies forbid it, and entire neighborhoods would panic if they saw a real candle sitting beside a curtain or leaning toward a tree. The world has gotten safer, yes, but it has also gotten stricter. Sometimes you wonder what we lost in exchange for that safety. The glow is gone, replaced with bulbs and batteries and rules that have no room for a little risk. Maybe that is the real reason that old candlelight sticks with us, because it once told us that Christmas could be beautiful without being perfect. Placing real oranges and walnuts inside stockings was a tradition that connected 1970s children to generations who came before them, even if they did not fully understand why. Grandparents spoke of times when fresh fruit in winter was a genuine luxury, something rare enough to feel like a gift rather than a grocery item. Parents carried the tradition forward, tucking bright oranges into the toe of each stocking and scattering walnuts throughout the folds. Children woke on Christmas morning and felt the weight of something round at the very bottom, often pulling it out with confusion before realizing it was fruit, not a toy. The orange smelled incredible, sweet and sharp against the cold morning air, and the walnuts required effort to crack, turning breakfast into a small adventure. The tradition was simple, affordable, and carried meaning deeper than any store-bought item. It reminded families that Christmas was once about abundance in small forms, about gratitude for what the season provided. Today, stockings overflow with plastic trinkets, but the memory of peeling that first Christmas orange lingers for anyone lucky enough to have experienced it. Aluminum and tinsel Christmas trees brought futuristic shimmer to 1980s living rooms. Forget pine needles and sap. These trees were pure spectacle, sparkling silver and glinting under the colored glow of rotating lights. They looked like something out of a space-age Christmas, sleek and proud. They reflected the optimism of the decade, modern, bright, and unafraid to shine. Families gathered around as the color wheel spun slowly, washing the room in waves of red, green, and blue. Kids reached out to touch the branches, amazed at how cold and smooth they felt. Every family had one relative who swore by them, convinced they were cleaner, prettier, and more modern than the old green kind. Children would lie on the carpet just to watch the lights reflect across the ceiling like glittering snow. Decorating them felt different. No smell of pine, but the soft metallic whisper of tinsel instead. Ornaments shone brighter against the silver backdrop, and even simple bulbs looked extravagant. For some, it was the height of style. For others, a sign of the times, an age fascinated by the future. Even without scent or texture, they carried a sparkle that no real tree could rival. They were part of an era that loved glamour, efficiency, and imagination all at once. In their glow, the promise of tomorrow twinkled alongside the warmth of tradition. No matter the opinion, one thing was certain. Once that color wheel started spinning, Christmas had officially arrived. Stretch Armstrong looked like your average muscle-bound hero, but every kid who got one for Christmas quickly found out he was anything but ordinary. Filled with a mysterious gel-like substance, this toy could stretch to unbelievable lengths. Arms pulled across the room, legs twisted around table legs, even tied into knots. It was the perfect blend of curiosity and chaos, the kind of fun that made parents nervous and kids delighted. You could spend hours testing his limits, laughing when he snapped back into shape as if nothing had happened. He was indestructible. Or at least he seemed that way until you went too far and that strange goo started leaking out. Still, Stretch was unlike anything before him. In a world filled with action figures that stood stiffly in place, he invited movement, creativity, and a little mischief. The simple act of stretching him across the room became a test of childhood strength and imagination. He was the friend who could take a beating and still smile back at you. Stretch Armstrong was more than a toy. He was a symbol of durability, resilience, and the untamed energy of the 1970s kid. Using asbestos-based fake snow for decor sounds unthinkable today, but in the 1970s it was still floating around in attics, storage boxes, and leftover holiday supplies from even earlier decades. Families sprinkled it across mantels, nativity scenes, and Christmas village displays without a hint of hesitation because it looked stunningly real. It clung beautifully, stayed in place, and made every surface look winter-kissed, even if the weather outside refused to cooperate. Most people never imagined that the soft white powder carried risks far beyond messiness. The word asbestos simply did not trigger panic yet, at least not in the way it does today. Back then, you were more focused on making your holiday decor look as magical as possible, especially if you were working on a budget and wanted your home to feel special. Today, possession or use of anything containing asbestos can bring legal trouble, health warnings, and removal orders. It is one of those dramatic shifts where science taught us something we wish we had known earlier. But when people look back at old photos, they do not remember the danger. They remember the tiny hillside of white powder beneath the ceramic houses, the shimmer on the mantel, and how perfectly it tied the whole scene together. Waiting all year for the Sears wish book to arrive was a childhood ritual that made September feel like the true start of Christmas. The moment that thick catalog landed on the doorstep, children across America dropped whatever they were doing and scrambled to claim it first. The pages were glossy, the toy section endless, and every photograph promised a world of wonder that seemed almost too good to be real. Kids would circle items with crayons, fold down corners, and spend hours imagining which toys might actually appear under the tree. Parents used it strategically, letting children dream big while quietly noting which pages got the most attention. The wish book was not just a catalog, it was a planning document for the entire holiday season, a shared reference that sparked conversations and negotiations. Siblings would argue over who got to hold it, and grandparents would flip through just to see what the younger generation wanted. When online shopping replaced catalogs, the wish book quietly disappeared, and with it went a tradition that turned anticipation into an art form. Those who grew up circling pages still remember the weight of that book and the thrill of imagining Christmas morning months before it arrived. Yule log. Broadcast on television was comfort in its simplest form. For homes without fireplaces, the local TV station gave one that never went out. A single looping video of a crackling log burning slow and steady through Christmas Eve. The soft pop of the fire and the glow on the screen made living rooms feel warmer somehow. The picture never changed, but somehow it never got old. Families left it playing in the background, its gentle crackle mingling with laughter and the rustle of wrapping paper. In the dim light, the reflection of the fire shimmered on ornaments and glass, making every home feel cozy. Families left it on while wrapping gifts or eating dinner, the flicker of the fire filling the silence like company. It was background, yet essential, proof that peace could be found even in something so small. Some stations added holiday music, others let the quiet crackle do all the work. It didn't matter. For countless families, that simple loop of burning wood became a tradition, humble, timeless, and oddly human. It was a kind of quiet magic, a reminder that comfort didn't need to be real to be felt. The fire never dimmed, the ashes never fell, and still, it warmed hearts just the same. Long before streaming screensavers, this was the original glow of togetherness. In a world that moved fast, the Yule log stayed perfectly still, glowing with the same gentle peace year after year. Baby Alive was the doll that redefined what realistic play meant in the 1970s. She didn't just sit prettily on a shelf. She ate, drank, and yes, needed her diaper changed. For young children, that was revolutionary. Baby Alive gave kids their first taste of responsibility, teaching them how to care, nurture, and empathize, all while being wrapped in fun. Feeding her from that tiny spoon, watching her drink from the bottle, and then realizing what came next. It was all part of the charm. The doll was designed to mimic real life, and that made it irresistible. Kids loved the interactive nature of it, the sense that they were part of something grown-up and important. Parents found it both amusing and educational, a toy that blended playtime with lessons in care. Baby Alive became more than a doll. It was a friend, a student, and sometimes a test of patience. It reflected the era's growing fascination with realism in play and the idea that toys could teach as much as they entertained. And for every kid who proudly carried their Baby Alive around, it felt like love, laughter, and a tiny touch of real life rolled into one. Lighting fireworks for Christmas Eve or midnight mass was an unexpected but beloved holiday tradition in certain parts of the United States. The winter sky would crack open with bursts of color, echoing through neighborhoods that were otherwise quiet and peaceful. Families bundled up in coats, stood on porches, and watched sparks rain down like tiny stars falling just for them. It was loud, dramatic, and incredibly festive. No one thought much about permits or safety laws or whether fireworks were allowed during the winter season. For many, it was simply a way to make the holy night feel even more magical and exciting. Today, though, fireworks are heavily restricted, and setting them off without approval can lead to fines or even arrest. The sound that once meant celebration now signals a code violation. It is strange how quickly something joyful can shift into something forbidden, but memories of those nights still glow warmly in the hearts of people who lived through them, especially when the air gets cold and the world gets quiet enough to remind them of the past. Sending handwritten Christmas cards to every relative was a December project that consumed entire evenings and filled kitchen tables with envelopes, stamps, and carefully chosen cards. Families kept address books thick with names, some crossed out and updated as people moved, tracking decades of relationships in penciled notes. Mothers often led the effort, but everyone was expected to sign their name or add a short message, turning each card into a tiny family portrait delivered through the mail. Choosing the right card for each person mattered, because a funny card for a serious aunt could spark quiet holiday drama. The process took weeks, with cards stacked in piles waiting for stamps, each representing a connection that might otherwise go unspoken all year. Receiving cards in return felt like a small victory, and many families displayed them on mantles or strings, turning their collection into a visible measure of their social world. There was pride in a mailbox full of envelopes during December. Email and social media slowly erased this tradition, replacing handwritten notes with digital messages that arrive and vanish without ever being held. Those who remember licking stamps know something irreplaceable was lost. Candle carousels and spinning angels were delicate table treasures that whispered rather than shouted Christmas. A small flame beneath their silver wings made the angels spin, chiming a soft metallic song that danced through the quiet. The sound was so gentle that you had to stop talking just to hear it properly. It was the music of stillness, the kind that made children watch in awe and adults remember peace. The flicker of the candlelight shimmered on walls like halos moving in slow circles. Every family had one, sometimes passed down, sometimes bought at a church bazaar. You'd light it after dinner, the glow catching the gold of the angels as they turned above the table. The air filled with wax and warmth, the scent of pine and cinnamon close behind. It was fragile beauty, the kind that had to be handled carefully, but that fragility made it precious. Every spin felt like a tiny prayer that the season's calm would last a little longer. The candle carousel didn't fill a room, it filled a moment, and that was enough. Before virtual reality and video games, there was the ViewMaster 3D viewer, a small red device that turned the world into something extraordinary. You clicked through reels of colorful images, each one bursting into perfect 3D right before your eyes. National landmarks, beloved cartoons, space adventures, even fairy tales, all came to life in miniature slides that transported kids to places they had only dreamed of. There was something deeply satisfying about the tactile click, the soft mechanical rhythm that made each new image feel like a secret reveal. The ViewMaster was both educational and enchanting, a toy that made travel and learning feel like play. It was portable magic, no batteries, no wires, just light and imagination. For many kids, it was their first window to the world beyond their hometowns. You could hold it up to the light and suddenly be standing at the Grand Canyon or walking through Disneyland. The ViewMaster didn't just show pictures, it showed possibility. And with each click of the reel, it reminded kids that there was always more to see. Recording Christmas specials off the television was an event that required planning, patience, and a willingness to sit beside the VCR with your finger hovering over the pause button. In the 1970s, holiday specials aired once a year, and if you missed them, you waited 12 whole months for another chance. Families gathered around the television with blank tapes ready, determined to capture every second of Rudolph, Frosty, or the Grinch before the next commercial interrupted. The person in charge of the remote became the hero of the evening, stopping the recording just before ads and resuming the moment the show returned. Most tapes ended up with bits of commercials spliced between scenes, but nobody cared. Those imperfect recordings became treasures, watched over and over until the tape wore thin and the picture started to wobble. Kids memorized every line, every song, and every pause where someone had fumbled the remote. There was pride in owning a collection of Christmas specials, even if the quality was grainy. Streaming killed that tradition entirely, making everything available instantly and removing the urgency that once made December broadcasts feel sacred. Homemade extension cord octopus plugs for tree lights were one of those wildly creative, wildly unsafe tricks families used without hesitation in the 1970s. You would see a single outlet powering an entire forest of cords behind the tree, all tangled together like someone tried to knit with electricity. These improvised clusters allowed families to plug in the lights, the rotating tree stand, the music box, and maybe even an extra lamp or two. No one worried about overheating or sparks or overloaded circuits. It was simply the only way to make everything work with the limited outlets older homes had. People trusted their instincts, not safety manuals. Today, though, building or using something like that is a clear violation of electrical codes. You can be fined, cited, or required to remove them immediately. Modern power strips have surge protection, insulation rules, and testing certifications because the old methods caused more fires than most families ever knew. The shift feels huge when you think about it. Back then it was creativity. Today it is negligence. But anyone who grew up during those years remembers crouching behind the tree, plugging one more cord into the impossible cluster, hoping it stayed together just long enough to make the living room glow. Building nativity scenes with hand-painted ceramic figures was a December ritual that transformed coffee tables, mantels, and windowsills into sacred little worlds. Families unwrapped each piece carefully, setting Mary and Joseph in place first, then adding shepherds, wise men, and animals one by one as the days counted down to Christmas. The figures were often chipped from years of handling, their paint faded in spots that only made them feel more beloved. Some sets had been passed down through generations, arriving in boxes lined with tissue paper that smelled like old storage and quiet reverence. Children loved arranging the animals, debating where the donkey should stand or whether the sheep looked better near the manger. The baby Jesus figure was always saved for last, placed in the tiny cradle only on Christmas Eve as a way of marking the moment the celebration truly began. These scenes were not just decorations. They were stories told in miniature, lessons about patience and the meaning behind the holiday rush. The ritual of setting them up year after year created memories no store-bought perfection could ever match, grounding Christmas in something older than tinsel or wrapping paper. Animated store window displays turned downtown shopping into a holiday pilgrimage. Before malls took over, families would bundle up, drive to the city, and press their faces against frosted glass to watch moving elves, trains, and glowing reindeer come to life. Each window told a story: miniature Santa's workshops or cozy living rooms filled with gifts and laughter. Parents hoisted kids onto their shoulders so they could see over the crowd, mittens fogging the glass as everyone gasped in unison. The mechanical whir of tiny motors mixed with carols drifting from hidden speakers. For a few fleeting minutes, everyone outside the glass felt part of the magic inside it. Children would gasp as mechanical snowflakes fell and toy soldiers marched in endless loops. It was theater for the streets, free magic in the middle of winter. The air outside smelled of roasted chestnuts and snow, and carolers often sang nearby. For a few weeks every December, ordinary storefronts became wonderlands, each one competing to outshine the next. The reflections of lights in the windows made the whole city shimmer. It didn't matter if your shoes were wet or your hands were cold. The magic reached you anyway. When you left, the images followed you in the glass of every passing window, as if the spirit refused to fade. When night fell, the lights glimmered like dreams made real. Even today, people remember those window displays not as shopping experiences, but as memories of joy, wonder, and imagination bigger than the glass that held them. If any of these vanished Christmas fads brought back memories, share your favorites in the comments, tap like to keep the nostalgia alive, and subscribe so you never miss another trip back to the holidays we thought would last forever.